Less than 2 weeks to go until the start of meteorological spring, but are there any signs of this rain clearing? Well, the short answer is no. It does look relatively unsettled over the next 10 days or so. That's because we've got quite a mobile setup. The jet stream driving a series of troughs and ridges, bringing some wetter days, but also some drier days. Actually, we have had some dry days this week, and we will see more of those before the weekend arrives. A ridge of high pressure actually moves in for Thursday before the next spell of wet weather returns for Friday as low pressure drives in from the Atlantic. There's also something else going on ahead of the weekend. This amplifying jet stream will also allow Atlantic milder air to move in for the weekend. So after a pretty chilly week, it will turn much milder, at least for a time over this weekend, particularly across southern areas and particularly on Saturday. On Sunday, there's another change where we see the return of some slightly colder air, not quite as cold as it has been, but colder compared to Saturday, particularly across northern areas. Across the south, there's a chance that we could see this weather front become a bit of a wavy feature. That means we could see the return of the rain into the south by Sunday afternoon. But there's some uncertainty on that. There is a chance that actually the weather front just clears away, bringing many of us a drier day across southern areas on Sunday. But for the end of this week, we've got further wet weather to come. Thursday, though, does look like a somewhat drier day. Still some rain, sleet and hill snow across eastern areas of the UK, but actually across the west, particularly compared to Wednesday, it's going to be a much drier day. Still a pretty chilly one with some quite brisk winds as well for some areas on Thursday. So a disappointing day for some of us, particularly across the far north and the northeast, where the rain will linger through much of the day. It does turn drier into the evening, a relatively dry but cloudy evening to come on Thursday. And then Friday, this next weather front pushes in from the west, bringing with it milder air, but also a spell of quite wet, heavy rain, particularly across western areas, some strong southwesterly winds as well. Temperatures, though, on the rise, 10 or 11 degrees, 12 degrees, in fact, across parts of the southwest, much closer to average for the time of year, but with the strength of the wind and actually into the afternoon, there's some quite blustery showers moving in on Friday. So you're not going to really feel the benefit of the mild air, but at least it will be a slightly warmer start to the day on Friday. Then the milder theme continues into Saturday. We get even milder air moving up from the south and west for Saturday, but it does come with some weather fronts, of course, so further wet weather. I think a lot of cloud around on Saturday, drizzly outbreaks of rain, especially across western areas. The south and east getting away with the best of any drier weather, but not to say you won't see any rain at all. And quite widely, temperatures above average, 12 to 13 degrees. Some areas could see 15 degrees to the east of high ground. Also to the east of high ground, there will be some quite gusty winds as well. So although it is turning milder, it's not going to be a huge amount of sunshine, and it is going to be quite breezy on Saturday, but could be some good weather to get out and about, and in any breaks it won't feel too bad at all. Somewhat spring-like, you may say. Then into Sunday, this cooler air spreads in from the north and west, so a more unsettled and cooler day for northern areas. In the south, that's where we've got a bit more uncertainty with this waving weather front as to quite how far north this comes, if it does develop at all, which decides whether it will be a wet day across southern areas on Sunday. But I think there will be some dry weather at some point, particularly in the morning on Sunday across the south. Into Monday then, this front should clear away to the south. You can see there's still some wavy features, the potential for it to clip southern areas through Monday morning. But there's quite good consensus between models that we will see a ridge of higher pressure just for a time, a short-lived ridge of high pressure on Monday. So the bulk of Monday does look like a drier and brighter day, but potentially a bit of a chilly one with cooler air still remaining across northern areas. You can see that milder air still across the south. So I think holding on to the slightly milder weather at least until Monday across southern areas. And then there's a bit of a change that comes in. It remains quite unsettled through the first part of next week. We've got the next weather front pushing in from the south and west. And this one, there's less of a consensus on between model runs. You can see this is around 6 p.m. on Monday, that weather front just out to the west of the Republic of Ireland. And here, this is the ECMWF ensemble output for that same weather front. So here's the UK here in that blue outline. And this series of red lines, that indicates that very same warm front. So we've got all the different ensemble runs individually marked with a red line, and the control run here in the slightly yellow line. And there's quite a big spread actually between the ensemble runs, and the control run actually is quite far behind. Now I should say this is lunchtime on Monday, so earlier on in the day as well. And all of these weather fronts actually have it further or closer to the UK by that time. So we're expecting this weather front to move in a little earlier than the global model, the UK Met Office model is suggesting. So that means it will likely turn a bit cloudier and a bit wetter from the south and west towards the afternoon on Monday, likely to move in a bit earlier than Tuesday itself. So it does remain unsettled into Tuesday. We've got Atlantic weather systems continuing to bring southwesterly winds. So fairly mild weather, wet weather, most prevalent across western areas, the south and east, seeing the best of any drier weather. But then there are a few changes throughout next week which will bring a change to our weather pattern by the end of next week. Now we've got high pressure, the Azores high, starting to build to the south of the UK, but we've also got high pressure building over the North Atlantic as well, closer to the USA. Now this view, we're looking down from the North Pole, and this is the pressure, the average pressure anomaly through the whole of next week. Now we've got the UK here, and we've got blues or greeny colour over the UK. That shows low pressure dominating across the UK. But what I want to show you here is actually the pinks. And this is that Azores high out to the south and west of the UK, very typical for this time of year, starting to build. But it's starting to extend actually over to the eastern seaboard. So we've got higher pressure extending all across this area and extending up the eastern coast of the USA up to Canada all through next week. Also the high pressure out towards parts of Eastern Europe, Scandinavia, starting to build as well. So high pressure building from both sides of the UK, low pressure dominating across the UK. So a bit more of a blocked pattern is looking like we're going to get more of a block pattern setting up for the latter part of next week. And that would mean low pressure systems would come down from the north and west of the UK, tracking southeastwards, rather than this moving up from the southwest up to the northeast that we will see through the beginning of the week. So that subtle change from southwesterly to northwesterly winds is looking most likely for the second half of next week and into next weekend. And you can see that also in the probability plot of the decider output. So blues showing that low pressure dominating through much of next week, but we get different shades of blue moving in. So through the start of next week, we've got that slightly lighter blue, those southwesterly winds moving in. Wet weather most likely across western areas, the east seeing the best of any drier weather. But then as the week goes on, the darker blues start to move in as well, and that slightly brighter blue, that's the northwesterly dominated colour. So that shows that we've got more of a westerly, northwesterly wind moving in, which could mean it would be more widely wet rather than the wet weather just pushing in from the southwest, rattling through, just bringing a spell of wet weather. Actually, we could see the rain lingering around, affecting slightly unusual areas as well. So these are the most likely pressure patterns by the end of next week. So on Thursday, we've got that westerly wind most likely, westerly or southwesterly most likely, but also in the second and third most likely we've got northwesterly winds moving in as well. So definitely a change Thursday, and then into Friday those northwesterlies become even more likely. There's a greater chance of seeing that. So I think the transition to this period could be somewhere between Thursday, Friday, but definitely by the weekend, those more northwesterly winds are likely. And as you can see on the colours here, that shows colder than average temperatures across the UK. So in summary, we can see these meteograms, how the temperature will change over the next 2 weeks. I've got on the bottom here, this is for London, and on the top here, this is for Glasgow. We've got the same trend actually in both of these meteograms. So it has been cold this week. This weekend, it turns milder. Remains relatively mild across the start of next week, but then there's a clear trend for those temperatures to fall back down below average for the final few days of February and into the very start of meteorological spring, into the start of March. Very similar trend for Glasgow across more northern areas. And it's worth noting as well, those minimum temperatures, the blue boxes here also come down. So although it will turn milder this weekend, we're not out of the woods yet with any risk of frost. I think most likely across northern areas, but even into the south, we could see some frostier nights as well. This is the 0 degree line. You can see into the early part of March, some of those minimum temperatures still coming down close to 0. So not quite out of the woods for frost yet. It does look like it will turn a bit more colder into next week, the end of next week and next weekend, with further wet weather on the way. But some dry weather to come on Thursday, so do make the most of that, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel to make sure you're up to date with all the latest. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.